On today's episode of the Lippert Technical Institute Show, Emily and I will cover the shocking truths you need to know about solar power. Then, Emily answers another frequently asked question about some common ground on RVs. Don't miss a technical trainer sharing a bit of their experience from their careers. Emily, what are you doing up there?
Well, I'm just trying to connect the photovoltaic panel to the MPP charge controller and get all of my connections in place.
You know, we've talked about you using big words.
You're right. Why don't we go set up a mini solar class so people can kind of keep up with the conversation?
Great idea. Let's do it.
All right, I'll follow you.
Okay. Oh, there you are. You finally made it.
I did. It took me a second to find my way down, but Here I am.
Yeah, well, I just finished up setting up this mini solar system, and I wanted you to walk me through exactly the basic components that make up a solar system.
Okay, so as we go through these components, there's going to be a few words that aren't really used in everyday vocabulary. So as we go through this, I'll use the word photovoltaic, which is the word that's used for solar panel systems. So this is a photovoltaic system. The word solar is used when referring to the energy coming from the sun. Photovoltaic is the actual system converting that energy into electrical output. So this system is made up of a few different components, and all systems are made or composed of generally the same components. So you'll always have a charge controller in place, whether it's a MPPT charge controller or a PWM charge controller.
So I get this question all the time. Basically, what in the heck does a solar system do, and what does it power?
Well, a solar system really is composed of the sun and the planet Earth and Mars and Saturn.
Funny.
Well,
what is a solar system on a RV power?
Well, our photovoltaic system can power anything on an RV. It charges your batteries, and then that battery then supplies that power demand to the rest of your RV. So you have your lights, slide-out motors, and if you have an inverter in place, it will also power your 120 side or alternating current side, which is normally things like your air conditioner, your outlets, anything that you would really plug into your RV.
So the solar system just powers the battery, and then the battery powers everything else.
Exactly. And there's a few components in place to protect your battery. So the purpose of the charge controllers is to really protect your battery and navigate that voltage coming into your system, because sunlight can change and vary throughout the day. So that power coming from your solar panel will also fluctuate throughout the day. And this will protect your battery from spikes of voltage and so on. So the MPPT charge controller, that's a mouthful, that is for larger systems. You'll see that for systems that are installed on the rooftop, normally 300 watts and above. But you also have the PWM charge controller, and that's for smaller systems where you would have your solar panel on the ground or with a kickstand, mostly the portable systems, because this can only handle that smaller voltage, and it works more like an on and off switch, so this does not really supply as much power as the MPPT. So Charlie, every photovoltaic system is composed of generally the same parts with variations depending on that specific need for that RV. You'll always have your rooftop connection, and that connects into your charge controller. That charge controller then connects into your battery. Sometimes off of that battery, you might have a battery monitor, which is really good for monitoring that usage of that in and out power consumption. And additionally, you could have that inverter in place on that circuit for your RV to get that alternating current.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that is a lot of information. What do you think we could go over to a whiteboard and actually do some math in order to look at different types of systems?
I think that will help people really understand what they could potentially need for their own camper.
Unfortunately, I'm not very good at math.
I might be able to. We'll find out.
Yeah.
We are excited to announce the launch of our new Lippert Technical Institute YouTube channel. This channel's focus will be to inform a wider range of customers, ranging from technicians to owners, those living the RV lifestyle. We want to drive content to you that's impactful, comprehensive, and helps you get through some of those issues that may keep you from camping. Our previous channel will continue to be uploaded with content focused on warranty procedures and part replacement. To stay up to date with all the content the Lippert Technical Institute has to offer, be sure to subscribe to both channels.
So I've been working with a few families that have different setups for their solar. Let's take a look at, we have a battery here, and we have your controller here, and you have your solar panel. So those are the three things that have to be sized properly for your RV to work. But one of the major things that you really need to consider is what are you powering? Do you have a microwave? Do you have a radio? Do you have all your kids' phones plugged in? All of those things are going to come into play. And what I recommended to the families that I'm talking to is, well, just power it with a battery for a few days. And if you have a battery monitor, that's really going to tell you exactly what you used. So normal usage could be that it lasts 3 days and it's dead. And that's really where you want to be, is a 3-day fully off-grid battery bank.
So you want
So
to
that's where you want to start.
have enough energy to last you for 3 days just relying on that battery, because I know solar is good to have, but it's not always the most reliable energy collection method.
So it just depends where you live geographically. That'll give you that amount of sun that will give you that charge needed. So for the most part, you get about 4 hours a day of sunlight that you could potentially charge your battery.
I think that's a pretty good average, because some places, like you said, depending on where you are, you could have longer daylight hours, shorter daylight hours, summer versus winter. It really can have such a large variation, and I think that's why this is so important for people to understand the math behind their system.
Right. On the solar panel side, that's really measured in watts as far as how big it is and how much capacity it can create that power to charge the battery. We talked about amp hours and we talked about the watts up here, right? So let's transfer your gas tank into watts. So if this is 100 amp hours, you multiply that by the 12 volts and you get 1200 watts. So this is a 1200 watt gas tank, but you have to divide it by 2 to get that 600 watt gas tank. Now, your solar panel, depending upon that 600 watts, needs to be sized appropriately. So let's just say that 600 watts is divided into that 3 days. So divide this by 3 gets 200 watts per day. That's the wattage that you need to run that battery system or the solar system for 3 full days with no extra help. So you can see how important it is to size this properly, because if you don't have enough wattage based on, hey, I am powering my inverter and my air conditioner and my TVs and my outdoor grill and all of that, this becomes not enough. This is just an example of what this system I'm designing is.
Yeah.
But it starts with how much wattage are you going to need? Volts times amps will give you that.
Okay, so if we want to have more than 200 watts per day, we need to really size up or change our batteries to actually have that full 100 amp hour battery. Like if we switch to lithium, then that would literally double what we would have, and we would have, what, 12 divided by 3 is 400 watts per day. So that would get people double what they've paid for.
Right. Now let's talk a little bit more about the solar panel. So for easy math's sake, I'm going to use a 100-watt solar panel that will basically charge this battery for 4 hours. So you take that 100 watts and multiply that by that 4 hours that the average amount, and you have 400 watts per day that you could potentially have.
So we have that 400 watts coming into our battery bank potentially every day if it's working at that 100% capacity for 4 hours. So that 400 watts is going through our charge controller and straight into our battery bank.
Yep, exactly. So this is going to sporadically give that power to the controller. This is going to make it even and then charge the battery. And it will replenish that battery on a regular basis. So you might be thinking that this is overkill, but remember, 4 hours is average, and that is a good thought though, because a lot of thought out on the internet and people that I talk to is, well, I'm just gonna buy a big old solar panel and give me all this power. So remember, the battery gives the power, and the solar system gives you the charge. Does that make sense?
I think I'm following. So this is the power going to our RV. So if we're using more than 200 watts, what's going to happen to our system?
If you live in Seattle where it's rainy and not very sunny, you're not going to get the 400 watts, you might get 100 watts, so that battery will eventually just click down and die.
And I don't think I know of a single system that's going to use just 200 watts. If we think about a light or even just a fan motor uses what, 3.5 amps?
Yeah, you start to add up all those different appliances and components in your RV, it'll add up quickly and kill your battery. The idea here is that where do you start? And I think that was your original question. And understanding how much battery power you have now. So let's just say you have a 64 amp hour battery that somebody else bought and put it in your RV, and you didn't really know how much gas tank you had, and you are running your RV over the weekend and it dies. So how do you re-engineer that system to really take care of what's going on during your weekend? And it starts with the battery, understanding that, but taking that a step further, you have to understand your power consumption. And I think the easiest way to do that is just to run it for 2 or 3 days on a normal weekend, see how long it lasts.
Yeah, because there's a lot of background loads people don't necessarily are drawing from that battery, like clocks on the radio, any behind the scenes sensors that you just don't really know are there every day. So from here, how would somebody go about deciding what kind of inverter they would need for their system, if at all?
First, you need to understand what an inverter does. It takes that DC power and transfers it to AC. And then you need to understand what in your RV is used with AC directly. And that's going to be your air conditioning, potentially any type of TV that's plugged into an outlet. And so it's the same theory where how big of an inverter do you need? Well, what appliance are you going to use that you need the inverter for? So that's a lot of math. And it seems to be complex, but if you take the air conditioning portion of it and the inverter portion of it out, it becomes pretty simple to the majority of users.
Solar systems can range from very basic of charging a battery in storage, which would only require a 50-watt panel, to large solar arrays that are supplying 1,000 watts every hour to charge and replenish and power an RV. But why don't we go sit down and have a chat about some of the most frequently asked questions around solar?
Man, that's a great idea, and I think that'll help fill in some cracks here.
All right, I will lead the way, Charlie.
All right, let's go.
There are two ways to connect electrical components. One is a series circuit and the other is a parallel circuit. And both circuits have their own characteristics. To start off, a series circuit like this one is where components are connected end to end in such a way that there is only one path for current to flow. So it's flowing through each of these components. If one of the components along that path is broken, the entire circuit stops working. The most common example of this is Christmas tree lights. When one bulb goes out, the rest follow. Next, there is a parallel circuit. A parallel circuit is a type of electrical circuit in which the components are connected across common points or junctions, creating multiple paths for current to flow. That means for this circuit, the current can flow through multiple paths, and each component has its own separate path to and from the power source. For a parallel circuit, you will find that if one component goes out, the rest will still work. These two circuits are important for every owner and technician to keep in mind, particularly when wiring batteries together. These two circuits will change the voltage and amperage of your battery bank depending on which one you're using. If you have a set of two 6-volt, 220 amp hour batteries wired in series, which is positive to negative, like you see here, the voltage will add together to get that 12 volts, which is the required voltage for most RVs. But the amperage for this setup would stay at 220. Now, let's say you had two batteries that have 12 volts and 750 amp hour ratings. If they were wired in parallel, like you see here with the positive terminal to positive terminal and the negative terminal to negative terminal, if they were wired in parallel like this, the amperage would combine to give you a total of 1,500 amp hours, and the voltage would stay at 12 volts. There's a third option which combines these two circuits. When you have a set of batteries grouped in series parallel circuit, you will apply both concepts. Looking at this example can be a bit confusing, but what I like to do is imagine the batteries combining to create one large bank. Let's start off by merging our batteries that are connected in series. Those grouped together would give you 12 volts. Next, we combine the sets wired in parallel. This increases the amperage to 1,500 amp hours. So our rating for our battery bank is 12 volts and 1,500 amp hours. In this series parallel battery configuration, you effectively combine the benefits of both configurations. You achieve a desired higher voltage from the series aspect, while the parallel aspect increases the overall capacity. This dual benefit is crucial for applications that demand specific power and energy and spreads the load across several batteries, which can increase the overall lifespan of the battery bank.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our Lippert Technical Institute channel. Emily?
And thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and when you subscribe, you'll be able to stay up to date on all of our newly released videos. Welcome to our Q&A portion of the show, where Charlie will answer your questions live.
What? No, not live. Really?
No, I'm messing around.
Okay.
But down to business. I scoured across a few platforms like our Scouts page, comment sections on YouTube, and so on to find real questions about solar involved in RV. So I think we can kick it off with one that's a little not so transparent to answer is, what do I need to connect solar into my RV?
Well, solar power has come such a long way in RVs, and the answer to that is it depends on your RV itself that you bought. So if it came prepped with everything in it except the system itself, you can install one. If it came with a full solar system, but you want to power your ACs 24/7, you're probably going to need to upgrade that. Make sure that you size the inverter properly. So inverters come in different sizes depending upon what you want to power, right? And if you're just gonna plug that refrigerator that your wife wants and that's it, your inverter is gonna be one size. But if you want to power your AC and your refrigerator for long distances, it's gonna be bigger. So it just really depends on what you have already installed in your RV.
I think when it comes to solar, it's really as individual as a person's fingerprint. You don't really know what's on a camper until you go and look and find what's on your camper. Some people have those sidewall solar ports. Some people have a rooftop prep where all they have to do is buy the panel and the charge controller and install them. But I think people really understanding what they already have and what they're wanting to do is a great place to start to figure out how to connect and integrate that system on their RV.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it earlier, right? We really need to know what you want to power. So if you are looking at your RV and you decide that you want to power your AC, you're going to need to get an inverter if you don't have one. You're going to probably upgrade your battery bank. You know, you got to increase that gas tank in order for the engine on top of the roof to power that system. So it really just depends.
Exactly. All right, I think I have another question, and I think I can answer this, is will my generator damage my solar system? The quick answer is no, the generator will not damage your photovoltaic system because there's components that are in place to protect each side.
Right.
For generators, often there's that transfer switch that protects the shore power regardless of if you have solar installed or not. But these two systems really can work together to fill in each gap for your energy consumption needs.
Yeah, and I think that the RVs today are built for generator use, and those safety measures are built into the system. And if you want to upgrade your solar system to, let's say, decrease your usage of your generator, you can do that.
Exactly. They're very good for complementing each other, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's our next question? Charlie, I think you can handle this one. Is what battery can be used with solar?
Well, you have your lead acid batteries and you have your lithium batteries, and it just depends on what you want again. But those are your two main battery systems that you'll find in RVs. Yeah,
I think the lead acid is one of the most recognizable and like the classic battery you'll find on your RV. But lithium's really like the up and coming battery because it has so much more potential. It can last longer. The charge life on it lasts a little bit longer. You can fully deplete it, whereas with lead acid you can't because then it will damage the battery.
Yep.
And then of course for closer to the lead acid is like the AGM batteries and gel batteries, which are all dependent on the certain situations that you would need those batteries in. It's a very individual preference.
Yeah, and I think for most people, the battery in your car looks an awful a lot like the battery in your RV, but they're very different. One has a lot of power to start that car, and the other has that deep cycle that can be recharged on a regular basis. And that's when you're going to the battery store, you really want to pay attention to what your needs are before you buy how big your gas tank is.
Exactly. Ooh, so I guess this is a follow-up to that question. Is it okay to use a standard lead acid battery with solar?
I think we answered that. So yeah, absolutely.
Pretty straightforward. The one drawback, I think, to the lead acid is that the capacity, you can only use half of that capacity.
Yeah,
so if you're looking for storage to be more compact, then lithium is a better choice, but lithium is more expensive.
Yeah, it's when the label's on the battery and it says 100 amp hours, it's a little misleading because you really only get that half 50 amps. So
exactly. But I think we have covered all of the questions from the community, but I have one more question for you, Charlie.
Boy. I'm scared.
Would you like to come help me finish my project that's out in the work bay?
Heck yeah, that's the fun part.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
John, what experience have you had that's really made you the tech that you are today?
I had a fun time with my first solar install. I was in the bay. I had just gotten everything wired up, and all the lights are clicking on the controller, showing that it's getting voltage from the solar panel. I've got my meter on it. I see voltage. I wasn't sure how much I should see, but I was seeing about 30, 40 volts. Then I went to check at the battery. I wasn't seeing any power coming into it, nothing coming off the charge controller, and I wasted a lot of time trying to figure out what I had wired wrong. I thought maybe it was a bad controller, so I went and grabbed a spare. I just forgot the most basic thing about a solar panel is that the name is solar, meaning sun, not just light. Yeah. The shop lights were bright enough to make the panel do something, but they're being LED lights, they don't give a full spectrum of light, they're just giving visible light. And so it was enough to make it kind of do things, but not enough to actually give amperage, give real charge. And so I wasted far more time than I ever should have on that first install because I forgot the most basic thing, that if you have actual sunlight on it, you have actual power. Exactly. But just reflected light from something or overhead lights, they're enough to make you think you have it. So the key to, when you're checking for power is to always remember what kind of power you're looking for, where you are, and that having voltage does not mean you have amperage. Seeing amperage does not mean you have sufficient voltage. You always need to make sure both are there.
For me, one really important story that always stands out to me is just the importance of taking your time and really just checking your surroundings when you're working on things. So I had never worked in the RV industry, and I was 3 days into the RV industry, and I was installing a hydraulic pump on a big Class A motorhome, and it was only about 1.5 feet away from 6 12-volt batteries. And when I was wiring everything up, I went to hook the power wire from the battery to the hydraulic pump solenoid, and I was using a borrowed wrench because, of course, I was day 3, so they weren't my tools. And when I went to tighten it, I turned my wrench and I hit the casing of that motor on that hydraulic pump, and it shot sparks everywhere, tripped the breaker, and then we had to break the wrench off from the motor from where it welded itself to the wrench, to the motor. So very important that whenever you're hooking that kind of stuff up, remember to trip the breaker or unhook the batteries until everything is fully installed. That was a hard lesson learned, but I tell you what, it really stuck out in my mind.
Step into the vibrant world of the Lippert Technical Institute. Discover a treasure trove of updates and insights with the Lippert Technical Institute Insider Playlist. Right now, we're showcasing an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at our technical training department, along with our latest video releases, documents, and training updates. Don't miss out and dive into the Insider Playlist today. Well, Charlie, thanks for helping me install that panel, but maybe next time we listen to my music?
Why?
There's nothing wrong with a good classic, but I think me and you have different definitions of a good classic.
Guaranteed.
That can't be closer to the truth. But to all of our fabulous viewers, thanks for dropping in on this episode of the Lippert Technical Institute Show. And be sure to catch us next time, where you can join me and Charlie getting ready for the camping season, where you can follow me and Charlie as we open up our RV for this year.
Plus, we'll be back to answer another frequently asked question and have another topic where we'll dig a little deeper.
If you like what you've seen so far, hit that like button, and if you want to see more of our content, be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of our releases and content from the Lippert Technical Institute.